Okay.
Hi, everybody. We are in for a real treat tonight. Martin's going to be giving a lecture tonight, and it's on mentorship. And of all the things that may happen in your life, from learning different skills, understanding technologies, moving through your career, at least speaking from personal experience, I don't know of anything that made a greater impact for me than mentorship, and how I was able to move forward and make leaps from job to job through coaching and recommendations that mentors provided for me. So what an important and thoughtful topic, Martin. I've really been looking forward to this all week. And so we're almost all here.
Do you want to start?
So I'd say let's start at any time that you're ready.
Okay, great.
Wait, I'm so sorry. There, I forgot. The student wants to make the announcement.
Yes.
Angelina.
So hi guys, my name is Angelina Molina, and I'm a part of the wearable tech class in the fashion program. And the class is basically letting students explore the relationship between technology and fashion. And so this upcoming Monday, we're planning a fashion show, and we're going to showcase all the students' works that we've been working on throughout the semester. So the show is going to be in the Fusion on First building, and it'll be on Monday, November 29th, and it's going to start at 7 p.m. So we all hope you guys can come out and support the students and see the works and just have fun, basically.
So, and exciting, we're pairing with popular music. So we have a DJ lined up for the evening. So just come listen to some great tunes, watch the students work, and, have a little fun in the middle of the final week of classes.
That's great. That's great. Super exciting, guys. So should we start?
Let's start. Let's talk about mentorship. I'm really eager to hear your story, Martin.
Thank you. So there's lots to unpack. First of all, I just want to get a temperature. So this is our next to last class, guys. So next week, that's it. It's a wrap. We survived. We made it to the end. Has it been good? Has it been good for you? Okay, cool.
Will you turn your cameras on, please? So while we're talking here, thank you.
Well, I'm glad to hear that it's been that it's been good. There's so much to share, and of course today is not going to be any different in that respect. There will be lots to share, and as I always start by saying, we share our stories so that we can gain perspective, and again, today we're gonna do that. So you're gonna learn a little bit about me. You've heard some of this before, and I think my first or second kind of talk. I'm going to go a little bit more in depth on some things and less on other things, but we'll end up focusing on mentorship and the power that mentors have in your life, and some of the other players that have to come together to make it all happen and all possible. This is something I just want to say. I was just on a CFDA call right before this one, and they had asked me to talk with a group of people about mentorship. I was like, oddly enough, I'm about to speak about it at ASU. No one like laid out the map, you know, and I'm going to do that so that for you, so that it can help bend the curve, so that you can identify the landscape quicker, sooner, faster, so that you are flowing in it and not just reacting to it. And one thing that I will share with you that I have not shared, I don't think I've shared before, is after I finish each call with, you know, a guest, or, you know, not, I call these calls, but, you know, our talk, our class, I call them. So as soon as I click, you know, leave, I call them, and they always say, oh my God, I hope I did okay. You know, I hope they got out of it what they need, you know, needed to get out of it. Was I okay? You know, that kind of thing. And of course, you know, you guys are on the receiving end, so you know what you're getting on your side. But what I always ask, or not ask them, but what I always say to them is, at this moment in your life, because you're not working, you know, you're not in the industry, so to speak, that in a year from now, or 3 years from now, 5 years from now, whatever, that you're going to say, oh my God, this is it. This is what Samira Nasser was saying, you know, I'm in it, you know, because it's going to happen. You know, like, life is no different for me than it is for you, you know, in terms of like life in general. So situations are the same, you know, problem solving is the same. You're going to meet archetypes along the way that are all the same. They're going to look different. They're going to come in different guises, you know, but you know, there's a certain personality type, this person, a certain personality type, that person, you know. But at least you'll know, you know, at the end of today, what the landscape will look like and who you'll need to tee up in your life to make it all happen. So with that said, maybe we jump right in. And I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can you guys see that? Okay, cool. All right. So bear with me as I get my own notes together here so I know what I'm talking about. So we're going to talk about mentorship using an intuition-based approach. And as I mentioned earlier, we have lots to unpack. So, so to give some framework, in this class, you're going to learn how to assemble all of the necessary pieces to make your career skyrocket when it's the right time. And again, no one laid this out for me. So my paying it forward is to give you the framework of the moving parts that you have to like make sure that they align so that it all happens in the right way. So you're going to learn the essentials of how to frame your success and the steps on how to assemble your own team who will advocate for you, meaning who will like, you know, raise your flag, you know, in any circumstance. You'll learn how to engage your intuition. What you've heard me talk about a lot, you know, this semester is what I call your inner compass. It's that, some people call it your gut, but that inside navigational tool that you have. You'll gain insights on how to give and receive feedback. And you'll get real actionable steps that you can take today to bridge some of the gaps and put your career in motion. So you think you're a student now, which to some degree you are, but your career is actually already in motion. So these are things that you'll learn today that you can actually put in place today. And ultimately, you'll learn how to expand your vision to see your life through a new lens. But before we, unpack, as I mentioned, we gain perspective when we hear other people's stories. So, and this may be a little repetitive because I spoke a little bit about my background, but I'm just going to circle back around a little bit. So I was born in South Carolina a year after the Civil Rights Act was signed. My parents, who learned from their parents, taught my brothers and me that whatever we chose to do in life, we had to be excellent, always, at all times. Half of that is just showing up. So no excuses were ever doled out in our family, kind of as a whole, because they knew that more than anything, being better was ultimately what would require to succeed. So my family, my cousins, we all got the drill. And the key to success, alongside an unwavering work ethic, was education. That was the key. And that's how my grandparents, my great-grandparents, were able to make tremendous leaps forward that would set the groundwork for their families. And as Samira Nasser said, you are your ancestors' wildest dream. Their wildest dream. That you're sitting there, on a screen, being able to see me, what is it, 2,500 miles away, I don't even know how many miles it is from where we are, a long ways away. So as I had mentioned earlier in my class, I was one of those lucky kids who never really had to figure out what I wanted to do in life. Fashion picked me. Drawing was my first love. And when I was 12, I started sketching complete collections. And so my calling, career-wise, was not in the family business of dentistry. My father was a dentist. So my parents struggled, when I got to New York and started working, my parents struggled to advise me once my career started. So I had to seek mentors and advisors along the way. And I led that search using my own intuition and curiosity. So another kind of note that I think is very important, and we're going to weave in and out of this concept a little bit throughout the class today, and that is, for almost my entire career, I have been the only one. And what I mean by that is the only person of color sitting in a room, whether it's the design studio, whether it's a boardroom, whether it's a meeting room, conference room, what have you. And I know that this will resonate with people of color on the call, and hopefully with non-people of color as well, who've noticed this void, perhaps in your schools or in your workplaces, or wherever you are. But my goal today is to hopefully inspire you to think about yourself in a different way, a new way. And I'm going to share some tools in how to actually do that. So I'm going to show you my story with the hopes that the pieces will ultimately fit together. So let me pivot. Here we go. So you met her before. This is my grandmother, Ada Cooper, who was Ada Sawyer. And this was a portrait taken of her as a young woman. She was a woman of color from the South who graduated from Pratt Institute in 1922, a time when women in general had no higher degrees of education, let alone a woman of color who left the South to go to Brooklyn to attend Pratt. She bought me my first sewing machine. She taught me how to draft patterns in a way that I could understand, very simplistic, okay? Now, where I am, from my vantage point, super simplistic, okay? And she also told me, and this is, something I shared with you earlier, was always trust your eye. Never trust a ruler, because there's not one single straight line on the human body. So I have I have something very special that I want to share with you. It's an extraordinary document. I've been told that maybe only a single handful exist. And this summer, this document, this book that you're seeing, turned 100 years old. So this was my grandmother's notebook from when she was at Pratt Institute. And of course, there was no, you go to your local, bookshop or order on Amazon your textbook. Back in the 1920s, you made your own, right? So I hope everyone can see this on the screen. It says, Ada Sawyer, room 24, Pratt Institute, Brooklyn, New York, April 4th through June 24th, 1921. So that's a close-up of it. And if you can see me in your little window, this is the book that I'm holding in my hand. So it's real, it's here. So this is in her handwriting, in her fountain pen, and she's writing notes about a sleeve placket draft in her little diagram. So you see the cuff and the placket, the little shearing. And that's her sample that she's made in class. This is before, machine buttonholes were made. So that buttonhole on that cert placket is done by hand. And those who are in fashion, do you know what you're looking at? Can anyone just turn your mic on? Tell me, what are you looking at if you know what you think you're seeing?
A sleeve pattern?
It's a sleeve. That's the head of the sleeve on its side. And I thought this was really extraordinary. So these were the measurements that they were going for. So the waist this is for a skirt. So, because women weren't wearing pants at that time, waist 26 inches, hip 44 inches. So this is an extraordinary waist to hip ratio, extraordinary. They say the ideal is 0.68. This is about 0.59 or 5.8. The closer that number gets to 1 means that the waist and the hip are the same. So it's more like a man's shape. So this leads me to believe that they were still wearing corsets at the time. Just in my little opinion, because it's almost a waist hip ratio of that degree is quite severe. So I want to say like 1/8 inch scale or something, 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch or something like that. You can see that this is a bodice for a shirt, what they call a shirt waist. So you can see the, the curvature of the armhole, the side seam, the sleeve at the bottom. And these are her slopers made out of cardboard that are here in the book. I can find it. If I can't find it, oh, here we go. I'll keep moving forward because we do have lots to unpack. So that's the little sleeve. This is the little shirt waist part, sorry, like that. And so I wanted to share that with you. So my story, I always say, started 100 years ago. And I do acknowledge that it's unique to me. Your story may not be the same story, and that's cool. That's totally fine. So we also went through this as well. But we're going to kind of bounce back to this. We're going to dig a little deeper on this. So when I'm presented with any opportunity, I always ask myself, why Martin? And I know it sounds strange, but when you know who you are and what value you're bringing, decisions become easier to make in the face of opportunity, because what may look like an opportunity may not always be. So I always ask myself, why me? And we've talked a bit about that. So this is me. This is all kind of recapping, and I'm going to make it all make sense to you in the end. So this is a young me, a moment captured in time by a friend of mine who sent me this picture about 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, something like that. That's me standing to the left, and the guy who's sitting looking at the sketches wearing the glasses, that is Calvin Klein. So that's me. I'm 21 years old. That guy is Calvin. And of course, is not behaving. So let's see here. Okay, hang on. I think it went. Bear with me. All right, we had a little glitch. Bear with me. Okay, here we go. And share. Okay, so that's the sketch that he is looking at. Okay, so we also saw this slide. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit, and I challenged you, now a few months ago, to start mapping out your own life in this way. So that's me in the center. And I did this exercise when I first moved back from London, and I wanted to kind of like figure out who was in my ecosystem. Who could I leverage? What story can I tell? And so I started mapping out these people in my own life. So I went to Parsons, pardon me. I ended up working for Calvin. I ended up creating a parka when I worked at Calvin that used a very special fabric at the time, and it was called microfiber. No one ever had used the fabric before. Of course, it's a common fabric today, but it was completely new at the time. And we sent it down the runway on a young Christy Turlington, and that garment gave birth to the modern outerwear industry. I'm also a member of the CFDA, which you've heard ad nauseum by now. I used to sit on the board of Parsons and also the board of the New School. I worked for Burberry for 16 years. Christopher Bailey, who's in the upper right, was my boss. Below Christopher is Rosemary Bravo, a legend in our business, who was CEO. I oversaw outerwear and was the kind of steward of the Burberry trench, and of course the very famous Burberry check. Burberry is a FTSE, what they call a FTSE 100 company, meaning it sits on their stock exchange. It's a publicly traded company. I became chief creative officer of Belstaff, was a custodian of their iconic Trial Master. We built flagship stores. We had David Beckham in our campaign, etc. So what I want you to do is to think about who are the people in your life right now that you have access to, that you can put on this map to help start plotting who can be a mentor to you, who can you learn from, okay? So things to think about. So we did all of this before, but I always say the groove cannot be deep enough. What's your story? Who helped spark your journey? Where do you want to go? How will you get there? So this is a very interesting study that was done. And so actually, first of all, I want to say, I want to ask you a question, and you can raise your hand. Who's looking to build their career? Raise your hand. So, okay, I see a few. Okay, there you go. Okay, so now that I have your attention, no matter how good you are at your job, you can't sit around waiting to be noticed, especially in an environment that may not want to notice you. So in the old days, we were told, keep your head down, deliver great work, still have to do the work, by the way, in the hopes that someone will notice you. So, I love my alma mater dearly, Parsons, but we were told the same thing. And that language went something like this: say nothing, listen and learn. And there's probably some virtue in there, let your work speak for itself. And it's your job to hand pins to the designer or pattern cutter in a fitting. That's what we were told. That paradigm doesn't work for everyone. And it doesn't work especially if you're Black or brown. Why? Because no one will notice that you were ever in the room. So today we're just, me, I give you the real. So, and we all have to be aware of these things. It's not how the world works today. So you must promote yourself and find others who are willing to speak up on your behalf. Sometimes you may hear it as this: you must control your own narrative, right? We've all kind of heard that. And if you don't write it, someone else will. It's another way of saying it. So many of you have been fortunate enough to learn this on your own. But for BIPOC people, so these are Black, Indigenous, people of color, humility in this way will not serve your greater purpose. It won't. So I believe that the fashion industry is a very complex landscape to navigate on its own. Taking race off the table for a moment is complex at best. It's art and commerce, right brain, left brain, and landmined with complex personalities. So someone said, life is more like high school than college. So you're in college, you just, high school wasn't that long ago. Life is more like high school than college. And guess what? They're right. And at least for a designer, the currency you're trading in is based in something that is so elusive and so subjective, and that's taste and personal opinion. That's your currency. So what you deem as right, someone else may not. So who gets their way? How do you get heard? How do you be seen? And then when you add that layer of race on top, that creates other nuanced complexities that must be considered. So having said all of that, the ray of light is here. And that is, okay, you guys ready? Successful leaders work under the assumption that nothing important gets done alone. I'll repeat. Successful leaders work under the assumption that nothing important gets done alone. So remember, the world's greatest Olympic athletes, the 10 gold medalists, they all have a coach. And why shouldn't you? So building a support group around you is not only key to your success, it will be essential to your success. Essential. So this slide that we're looking at, in 2001, a guy named David Brown, he published a study called Race Matters, The Truth About Mentoring Minorities in Harvard Business Review. And the study comprised of African-American, Asian, and Hispanic American executives. And guess what? Some minorities excelled. Why? And I quote, "Even though the minority executives were not on an obvious fast track, influential mentors were investing in them as if they were, which helped prevent them from either ratcheting down their work performance or simply leaving the organization," which, in my opinion, sadly is more often the case. They concluded that, here we go, sorry. They concluded that the people of color who advanced the furthest all share one characteristic: a strong network of mentors and corporate sponsors who nurture their professional development. So that's the end game, guys. That's the end game, spelled out. So the goal is simple. We know what we're working toward. Now let's map out the landscape so you'll know who's who. So I call them the career boosters. Finding a mentor is a great step. But there are others in this ecosystem that you'll need to assemble around you to flesh out your own personal ecosystem, your team, if you will. Yes, you're going to have a team, okay? And I call them the career boosters. So career boosters can come in your life at any time, in any order, and you may have one of them, or all of them, or none of them at certain periods of your life. The goal, obviously, is to have as many in your life as, at any one given time. So let's have a look. But before we do that, and again, here's a real, we have to set one ground rule. In order for any of this to work, you have to be really good at what you do. And you have to shine, and you have to deliver high quality work. If you don't, it won't work. So let's start by understanding kind of like the lay of the land. And we're going to start with mentors. So mentors, and this is kind of dense, okay? It's a lot of words, a lot of me talking, but really just listen and absorb. It's dense, but it's going to kind of make sense at the end. But these are the people that you're going to need to assemble who may already be around you. You just have to like look at them in a different way, through a different lens, to know who they are and pull them into your fold. So mentors tend to be more experienced leaders, acting as a role model to someone who's less experienced, a protege, for example, kind of imparting their knowledge and expertise. Mentors help you develop a skill. So if there's something that you're trying to learn, a mentor can help you learn that skill. They can be found within or outside of your organization, meaning like where you're working, but within your school, your home structure. So don't think of it as strictly work. And at any level in the hierarchy. So they can also be any age. They don't have to be older than you. Though they tend to be older than you, but they don't have to be. They just have to be better at the skill than you are. Whether that's something technical or an aspect of leadership. They just have to know something that you want to learn. So a mentoring relationship is a safe space where you can share your concerns, your vulnerabilities. My mentor, who I call, I always use a Star Wars reference. I call her my Obi-Wan Kenobi, and she says, warts and all. So when we talk about a safe space, you need to be able to talk about warts and all, everything. The mentor's goal is to see their mentees succeed. It's very simple. That's their level of investment. They just want to see you succeed. They're more personally motivated than politically motivated. So they're not looking to really get anything out of it other than seeing you move to that next step. People who are mentored garner more promotions, higher salaries, and more career satisfaction than those who are not. You don't have to do it yourself. You shouldn't do it yourself. You don't have to carry that burden yourself. Mentors generally operate behind the scenes. They are not front facing. So my mentor, no one knows who she is, you know, but she's there for me. Sometimes the best mentors never even know you're their mentee. It's not a formal arrangement. You're just watching and observing and learning all the time from them. Again, being intuitive, right? Being intuitive. This person has something I think I need to know about or learn about. So find a mentor by identifying someone from whom you want to learn, asking them to teach you about that specific skill, and committing to listening and learning. So the next piece are advocates. So you need mentors in your life, and now you're going to need advocates in your life. I just want to make sure that, okay. And you can see we're starting to build a circle, right? That line is bending. So advocates bridge the gap between mentors, sponsors, and colleagues. And we'll kind of explain what that means a little bit. So advocates do a lot of what mentors do, such as give solid advice and guidance, but they can offer so much more, so much more. So one major difference between mentors and advocates is that the advocate's role is inherently public in nature. Remember, mentors operate behind the scenes. Advocates work in real space. They stick their necks and reputations out there for you in a way that mentors can't or don't. They know and respect you and your work in depth. Could be a teacher of yours, you know, who hears about a job and says, listen, you know, my student, like, this is your person. You know, I know his work, I know her work. You guys would be perfect. Can I pair you together? Can I get you on an email together? Right? That's an advocate. When they give their stamp of approval and make their support of you highly visible, they create career traction for you. For example, they'll help facilitate that stretch assignment to get you seen and be rewarded. When I say a stretch assignment, I mean, you know, like something over and above. And if you're seen, you know, doing the 3-pointer and you hit the 3 points, you're going to get seen and you're going to be rewarded for that. Don't necessarily see it as extra work. See it as opportunity. And by doing that, they help expand the perception of what you can achieve. They connect you to senior leaders. And as I mentioned, they make you visible. You're operating in a system that doesn't necessarily want you to be visible. So advocates help pull the veil, that cloak of invisibility off, and help you to become visible. They connect you to career opportunities. since they have firsthand experience with your work ethic and performance, it gives them instant credibility when speaking about you. They help you get credit for your work. Advocates are influential and can move pieces on the chessboard for you in a way that mentors can't. They're powerful. Powerful. But many talented people are way too slow in cultivating a relationship with an advocate. Why? They're trusting in the universe that the right advocate will appear at the right time in their career and sweep them off their feet. Meaning they're leaving it all to chance. That's super, super rare. You need to go out and pull these people in. Or they limit themselves to a single sponsor or advocate. Or they don't aim high enough in the relationships they cultivate. Remember, the relationship should be at the level where you want to get to. So, for example, if you want to become a VP, your network should be VPs. If you want to become an assistant merchandiser, your network should become assistant merchandisers. If you want to become an assistant designer in a studio, your network should be other assistant designers. So this is also helpful when you're having your, okay, so you guys haven't hit this piece yet, but it's coming. And you're gonna say in 2 years from now, holy moly, this is what Martin was talking about, your performance review. So once a year, everyone sits around, are you making the cut? You're not making the cut. Are you contributory? Are you not contributory? And at the end of the day, it boils down to, are you going to get money or not? And if you are going to get money, as in a pay raise or a bonus, at what percentage? What increase? Right? If no one knows you, or your boss is the only one at the table advocating for you, chances for that promotion start to dim. But when you have 3 people, 4 people, 5 leaders around the table advocating for you, you've created a greater chance of getting that promotion or pay raise. It's just simple life. Very simple life. And sponsors, not advocates, often find potential proteges through their advocates. So for the next piece, we're going to jump into what is a sponsor? Okay, so I missed some of that in there for you. Okay, so next is the sponsor. So a major difference in your relationship with a mentor versus a sponsor is that the mentor-mentee relationship is in that relationship, the mentor-mentee relationship, the mentee is usually driving the agenda. I'm raising the white flag, my boss is a jerk, I need help, right? You're driving that agenda, or I got passed over on something, I need help, blah, blah, blah. With a sponsor, they're driving the agenda. They're constantly seeking and directing opportunities toward you to leverage your talents and contributions in a greater capacity. They are driving that car. Of the career boosters, sponsors are what I call the door openers. They bring exposure to you so that you can be seen on an even bigger stage. So sponsors provide exposure, they provide visibility and experience through opportunity. This is something mentors generally cannot do. And because of their rank in the organization, they have incredible clout, incredible clout. They can make a case for your advancement and make you seen and heard when you're not there, because they're sitting at the table having discussions that can make or break your career. You're not at the table. They can align your skills with projects that you may not even be aware of or even be involved in, for that matter, at that point. But they connect and plug you into something. And that something is called opportunity. Sponsors can make or influence a hiring decision. They can place you on the next rung of your career ladder. But sponsorship, here's the, I always give you the real. Sponsorship is a transactional relationship. It's transactional. It's not like a mentor who just wants to see you do good. So this relationship is transactional, but mutually beneficial. So if I do this for you, then you will do that for me. So we have a wise friend who always says, fair exchange is no robbery. I see Denita smiling. Fair exchange is no robbery. So you may have heard the expression this way: if I scratch your back, you'll scratch my back. It's transactional. By definition, sorry, let me click forward. So by definition, they are at least 2 steps up the hierarchy from you, or perhaps even more. The sponsor invests their political capital in helping your career. But in return, and this is the transactional part, you must deliver. You must deliver. There's no way around it. So, and this is where you have to be really good at what you do part comes in. So there's really no escaping it. You have to do the work. It can't be, we have a person who's a part of our team here, and sometimes says, well, I need a mental health day, or I need a personal day, That gets tricky in this relationship, because they're saying, I'm investing in you. You have to deliver the goods, or I withdraw my investment from you. Guys know how life works. I'm telling it to you in the most basic of real forms. No one ever broke it down like this to me. So in essence, sponsors get someone they trust to do work on their behalf. Successful sponsors also develop a reputation as being spotters of top talent. So you want to be in their purview. And the sponsoring relationship is about the sponsor's success as much as about your career advancement. So they're looking to win too. You're part of a wheel in their machine, right? It's transactional, you have to deliver and be really good at it. Sponsors help increase company retention because they're spotting people in the organization who they're pulling up. So they help people. So let me just back up. Retention means that you don't leave the organization for whatever reason. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and how it affects, retention affects different people in different ways. And here's the tricky part. You can't ask someone to sponsor you. Your work and your advocates must bring you to their attention. So it's almost like your boss's boss. Okay. So recommendations. So this is my own personal opinion. It's my belief that companies need to bring sponsorship into the open. Right now, in many organizations, it is not. And train all high-level executives on sponsorship. It's a part of an ecosystem. You know, it's constantly churning. Many companies have, you know, a system in place, a formalized system in place. Others do not. But it's my belief that that it should be, and they should reward sponsorship. So those who sponsor the unrepresented should be recognized as positive contributors to the organization. So when these three assets come into your life at the same time, remember the wheel: mentor, advocate, sponsor. Magic can happen. Doesn't mean that it will happen, but the odds are so incredibly stacked in your favor. See it as an alignment of the stars. And as I mentioned, you may have one of them, two of them, all three of them. That's the goal. Or you may have none of them at any one given time. And it's a constant moving puzzle. So be purposeful in bringing these people into your life, and that they demonstrate the skills and opportunities that align with your needs. Connect with them, and trust me, your life will be set in motion. But guess what? As you can see, the circle is not complete. There's a fourth layer. And when the fourth layer is in place, it's the stardust that binds your entire ecosystem together. And that's called allyship. Oops. So for BIPOC people, allyship is the fuel in the rocket. It's the propellant. Allies will play a huge role in the equation of your journey and the success of your career. And when we do the math and look at the numbers, the reasons are quite compelling. And so what I'm getting at is I'm speaking about the allyship piece in regards to BIPOC people, or people who are other, put it that way. And let me just click forward. So, and these are just the real deal facts. Black folks only make up 16% of the US population. It is, so I'm going to preface by saying this is not scientific, okay? It is my belief that in fashion, people of color make up 1% or less than 1%. So if it's 1%, that means there's one BIPOC person for every 99 non-BIPOC people. If it is 0.5%, which I think it probably more is, that means that there's one BIPOC person for every 199 people. So that's how we arrive at me saying, I'm the only one. So the numbers show that how we arrive at that all too familiar phrase. So in order for this to take off like a rocket, the majority must help, support, and advocate for the minority. In other words, and here's the real, no matter how hard we try to initiate change or how many mentor-mentee strategies I can share with you, we can't do it alone. And this is where allies on the call should perk up. So many say, many may say, well, what can I do? Or I don't know how to help. So here are some suggestions. As I mentioned, the majority must help, support, and advocate for the minority. Small actions equals big impact. Small actions. So, provide your colleagues, friends, whomever, with access to things that you may take for granted. And maybe perhaps more on a career level, for example, it can be people or resources. So it may be saying, it's a phone call, to a colleague to say, I'd appreciate if you took, 30 minutes out of your time to have a chat with this person or that person. They have a lot to offer. It's simple. There's no sweat off your back. It's just helping someone get seen and heard. Take interest in someone in your organization. And again, as we've learned, organization can mean your family, it can mean your class, it can mean school, it can mean your church, it could mean your place of work, place of worship, wherever, your community. And let them know that you want to see them succeed. Say, I want to see you succeed. And show them that caring matters. But everyone, and this is the beauty of life, can be an ally. So privilege comes in many forms. So men can be allies to women. White women can be allies to people of color. Cis people can be allies to members of the LGBTQ+ community. Those of able body can be allies to those with different abilities. Even economically, those who are privileged can be allies to those who are not. and so on. Use your power for good. Make a difference. So getting back to the discussion, what do I mean by carrying your water? I don't know if anyone caught that in my talk. I often use this term. Water is heavy, swishes around, is splashy, is messy, can be backbreaking. An ally must be willing to carry your water. Or in other words, to carry your concern or your agenda. And it's okay, it's totally okay, if they're only willing to carry it part of the way. They don't have to carry it the whole way. People will always tell you who they are. You'll never have to figure out where you stand with people. People will always tell you, where they are with you. And any ally will be making personal choices, whether to carry your water or to push your concern or agenda every step along the way. Know that. And again, don't be upset if they say, well, I can only carry it to this point. You're gonna have to find someone else to carry it from this point forward. That's all good. So you remember we started with this, right? So these are really my allies, my sponsors, my mentors, my advocates. This is how I mapped out my life. It will make sense when you put it on paper. Who is in your ecosystem? How do you leverage them? Okay. I know it's a lot of heavy stuff, guys. I know it's heavy, it's dense, but just, bear in there with me. So, intuition. I'm a huge believer in intuition. As I mentioned just a moment ago, people will always tell you who they are. That's actually the easy part in life, I find. Rarely will you have to figure that out. Rarely. But managing a relationship, once you know who they are, requires navigation, skill, and guess what? Intuition, right? So often the purpose of the mentor can help you see the blind spots. We all have blind spots in our sight. And that's a great way for you to work with a mentor, is to have them make you see something that is hard for you to see for whatever reason. But intuition must be a commitment. It must become part of you. It must become your life compass. Because without intuition, you end up listening to too many voices, and that's probably not a good thing. It starts to sound like a lot of radio stations are playing in your head at the same time. So you need to use intuition as your filter to block some of that out. That's your life compass. So intuition ultimately is knowing what you need. And that's not easy. Knowing what you need. So here's an interesting story. So when I was a senior at Parsons, I started working for a 7th Avenue designer in the 550 building. Her name was Gloria Sachs. She's no longer alive now. And she was a player, you know, at the time. And I started working for her when I was a senior. And in those days, an entire business unit was on one single floor. So you had design, you had sales, you had production, you had cutting, you had shipping, all on one floor. And so I went to the heads of each department and asked, can I hang out with you one day a week for a month or two? Show me what you do. And within about 8 months, I had a really comprehensive understanding of how every business function under that roof worked and how all of the pieces fit together. No one told me to do it, right? I led with my intuition. I led with my inner compass. And incidentally, the same designer was kind enough to write one of my recommendation letters to the admissions board of the CFDA when I was applying for membership. And over the years, she had been my boss. She had become my mentor, my advocate, my sponsor, and my ally, all in one person. So as we are kind of coming around the corner, feedback. I'm just going to touch on feedback for a little bit. I know we're, you know, tight on time. The biggest misconception with people is that they often take feedback as something negative. It's not. That's not what it's meant for. We all have blind spots, as I mentioned, and feedback helps us to become more aware of these blind spots so that we can become more productive. So my thoughts on how to give honest and great feedback are generally, number one, like cardinal rule, honesty is sacrosanct. You can't have a meaningful discussion without honesty. So your goal is to create a platform where you can have dialogue as equals. Even though you may work for someone, you still want to be able to sit at the table and to talk as equals, right? I can't stress this enough, and especially for my BIPOC friends who are on the call, you know, in conjunction with, you know, sponsors and allies, we should always aim to have dialogue as equals. And in my opinion, feedback goes both ways, you know. So the next piece is that they must give or suggest actionable steps. People aren't mind readers. Spell out the expectation. You know, you just can't have feedback or, you know, what they, you know, constructive criticism without providing some sort of solution, you know, or like, where's the goalpost here? You know, what are we aiming toward? What's the goal? And in my opinion, you know, feedback without solutions can be hot air. And so just know that, you know, and maybe if they're not offering solutions, ask. Just say, you know, like, okay, you brought this up. How do you think I should tee up, you know, the next quarter? Or, you know, can I organize something in a different way to help me hit this goal? Get them engaged, you know. But never feel the need to defend yourself. Just absorb it, take it in, And in my opinion, giving feedback, always lead with the positive and end with the positive, and place the criticism or the, opportunity in the middle. So we are officially coming around the corner. So actionable steps. So these are things that you can do now. So you may say, well, I don't know anyone. What do I do? You have to get out there and connect. One can't pour from an empty cup. I think it's something like 70 or 80% of all jobs one learns from someone they know. Like 80%, it may even be higher than 80%, right? You remember Samira, right? She said, her friend said, hey, you want to make some extra money, assisting a stylist, someone she knew. Now she's editor-in-chief of Harper's Bazaar magazine. So logic says you have to place yourself in the stream of conversations with people who know about opportunity. That's why, and you guys may have heard me say this weeks ago, never take yourself out of the flow of opportunity. Sometimes it's called networking. I don't like that word so much. I find that word extremely transactional. I don't like it. Maybe you just call it just being friendly. That's how you start relationships. Just be friendly. These relationships grow organically. So in the most basic and simple first step, reach out to someone who can get you just one step closer to your goal. That's it, right? Just one step closer. That's all it has to be. Be sure to leverage the power of LinkedIn. If you're not on LinkedIn, get on LinkedIn. There's another platform that the CFDA is involved in, which is called creatively.life. And it's basically LinkedIn for creative people. And so that's a great next step. Start connecting with others like you on these platforms. And again, if you want to be an assistant designer, become friends with assistant designers. So the next is a very interesting concept. And I know we're like really, tight on time. So we have something in our lives, and you may have heard it in different forms, but we have a thing called the family. As a matter of fact, we have a friend who's staying with us this weekend. She was one of the original members of the family. We were essentially our own board of advisors. So there were about 5 or 6 of us. I was in fashion. My wife, Karen, was in fashion. Our friend Gina, who's here at the house now, Gina's a model. We have a friend who's a celebrity portrait photographer, fashion photographer, another celebrity makeup artist, another who's a business person. And we would all have dinner, together in the city. And, we called and said, so we're going to meet at so-and-so for dinner. Who's coming? The family. Everyone knew what that meant, and we'd sit around and we'd say, hey, like this person at the office is trying to make a power move on me. What do I do? Everyone weighed in. And you got that information from so many different points of view. Start building your family, your own personal board. So I know that a lot of us, and I'm gonna stop my screen share. I know that many of us are struggling to make sense of where we are in the world today. And I know this is a heavy, like it's an hour and a half, super dense, heaviness, but I want it to sit somewhere in your mind. You know, we have the pandemic, we have a lot of stuff that's going on in the world. And for anyone who's on the call saying, you know, thank you, but nothing new here, my reply would be, put these points in practice, walk the walk, and I promise you, doors will open, but you must put in the work. You heard Samira say it too. You must put in the work. Find mentors, find advocates, find sponsors, and of course, allies. Do not leave it up to the universe or chance. Take control of your life now. Okay, and on that note, you know, I am done. I know that we're winding down. If there are any questions that you want to shoot at me, I'm happy to stay on for a bit. If you have to hop off, I completely understand.
I see Abby has her hand up. Abby?
Hi. So I just wanted to ask you, since just as you move from job to job, I'm inherently a very introverted person, and I'm wondering your advice of how do you navigate and cultivate a healthy relationship with your boss of an opposing personality?
So it's tricky, you know. So what I do, so pardon me, I've worked for amazing people, and I've worked for people that I don't like as a person, like as a human being. I don't like them. And those are obviously the hardest relationships to navigate, but also the relationships that push your boundaries. You learn a lot from them. So they're not all bad, you know. They could be unrealistic, they could be gruff, they could be whatever, you know. My advice would be, it's your responsibility, not theirs, to get to know your boss or the person you're working with. Say, every month I'd love to have lunch with you. Would you like to have lunch with me? You know, we can go out. You know, sometimes it's nicer or easier to go out for lunch. You know, phone's not ringing. You know, the assistant's not walking in or going like this. You know, like, you know, they're not doing that, and that you can relate to each other on a human level. Check in. The relationships that die on the vine are the relationships where you don't check in. You can't put your head in the sand. So it's not about being shy. It's about like this person is going to sink my battleship. That's what it comes down to. So get to know them and let them get to know you. It's a two-way relationship. So I almost want to say it's not about shyness. It's not about, I'm shy, believe it or not. I am so incredibly shy, but I know that there are things that I have to do that are part of the world of survival, you know, and that is connect with people who don't necessarily want to connect with you.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Victoria has her hand up.
Victoria, where are you?
Here.
Okay, there you go. Hi.
Yes. Hi. I wanted to ask you, has there been a time where you really felt like giving up in your fashion career, that it just felt like the world was against you? And what did you do to like kind of push through it and stick to like your morals to student?
Sorry, so repeat the last piece. It just broke up.
I said that what did you do to just like kind of push through this like tough time, and what did you do to stick to your morals like in being in the industry?
Morals.
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 Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I mean, I've experienced, and if we run out of time, guys, you have me all day Monday, and so we can just like go into the deep dive. So it's not really a talk or anything like that. It's just, I would hope that it's just one-on-one kind of dialogue. Okay, so here's the real deal. Why was I able to go into each department of that business when I was a senior at Parsons and say, tell me what you do? Because I'm a senior at Parsons, right? I'm not working. I'm no threat to anyone. But I use the opportunity to strike when I'm not a threat, right? To get the knowledge when I'm a threat. If I walk into a place now, is me, Martin Cooper, and I walk into the cutting room and I say, show me what you do, why is he looking to do that? So know where you are in the system and be completely opportunistic about exploiting that piece in the system that you have access to. So Denita, you were going to say something? You're on mute.
I was just gesturing in enthusiasm, Martin. It's hard to keep still sometimes because throughout this series, so much of what has been said resonates with my personal experiences too. And I know what you're saying is so remarkable and so important, and is explained so clearly. It just came out for a minute there.
Okay. Yeah, I love it.
Malia has her hand up.
Yes.
Hi, Martin.
Hi.
So my question was, throughout our talks, we've had so many people kind of say that every career that you take is an opportunity for something in the future. So my question was, if you have a disagreement with either your boss or you find that you dislike that job, how can you properly remove yourself from that narrative, remain professional, and feel authentic with, making that decision for yourself?
Okay, so here's my first piece of advice. And my mentor said this to me. My Obi-Wan Kenobi said this to me. You know what she said? You always want people to say nice things about you. Always. Like, there's no reason for a knockdown, drag out. People remember how you made them feel. So even if you didn't get along with someone, but if you made them feel good or they walk away with a positive feeling about you, you can remain connected forever. So it's not a zero-sum game. It's not like, well, we didn't get along, so I'm going to scrub this person from my life. This is kind of a reflection of the times we're living in with social media. It doesn't really work that way, so to speak, in the real working world. You always want people, like when I would just sit there and watch a person just like melt down, and just like, you are just shooting yourself in the foot. Why are you doing this? And I know that, I know, the word morals have come up a lot throughout, the course of our talks. And, I think that's, fashion is a hard, it's a hard business, like it's, it attracts, oftentimes difficult people. I am not lying when I said it is more like high school than college. And navigating them is not easy, is not easy. You will have the easiest time because there's a certain social consciousness about it right now. Like Danita, I'm sure you can share stories that will make everyone's hair curl. You may get 10% of that. Who knows? I mean, people are still people, but I say you be you. And people will respect you, like I think that really comes down to it, like, are you respected? I don't necessarily mean like, are you liked? Because that's not the goal, especially for a leader. It's not necessarily the goal to be liked, but as long as you're fair with people, I think people get bent out of shape about if you're not fair and if you're hypocritical. That's really when it comes down to, like if people are saying, don't do this, and then they do it themselves, right? That's where people get their, nose bent out of shape. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I know that we were all looking forward to next week being with the Parsons class, and it's, a disappointment that we can't, but I'm really looking forward to just more of this kind of dialogue next week. And so everyone bring your continued thoughts. I mean, so much to reflect on from tonight and so much important material. Thank you, Martin. That was incredible. It really was.
My pleasure. And guys, think about, so, Monday is our last time together. And maybe we just make it, more of this. But really think about, what do you want to learn? What you have me. What do you want to get from me? What can I give you? But you have to present it in the form of a question. So that's your homework, is like, it could be anything. You know me, I'm an open book. If you're bold enough to ask the question, I will give you an answer as best I can. Anything else? Any other questions? Saphir, you always have a question. Okay, so now I'm talking, you don't have a question. Huh.
I have one for you next week for sure.
Okay, all right. But it's amazing. Here's the bottom line. You guys are walking into fashion at probably its most opportune moment ever. It's being burned to the ground.
Yeah.
So you're not in the fire, right? You're the crew that's about to come in. You're like the little seedlings that are about to grow and build the next forest. So you're going to hear people like me, talk about, whatever, but your world is going to be different. You may get a whiff of it at the end, like when you get in, you may get a whiff, but it's not going to be, it's going to be so different. Why? It has to be different. There is no choice, from a, take the, human relations piece off the table. Like, why are we shipping swimwear in January? Why are we shipping wool coats in July? It's all this like bizarre legacy stuff. that the industry just can't get around, you know? And you guys are going to be the next group of entrepreneurs. There'll be more of you as entrepreneurs than working for a brand. And if I may add, right before we sign off, in my day, we worked for designers. You know, you went to Parsons, you worked for Calvin, you worked for Ralph, you worked for Donna, you worked for whomever. You guys are probably going to launch your own business at some point, but use the time to learn from someone else. It's a very, very cash intensive proposition, but you may end up working for a celebrity. So the trend in my time was working for a designer. You may be a talent for hire to go inside and flesh someone else's vision out. And that person may be a celebrity. How do you guys feel about that? Courtney, hit it.
It is an interesting paradigm shift that we see these days. The designers were the celebrities almost, and it would almost be a joke back in the day to have someone like Kim Kardashian at your fashion show, but now she's the powerhouse with, you know, Skims and makeup and things like that. So I definitely agree that's where we're headed.
So to your point, you know, that relationship is going like that. It's like completely inverted. Yeah.
Can I
Anyone else?
chime in?
Yeah, hit it.
So that's actually happening to me right now, not myself, but the brand that I work for. And one thing I've noticed is that not every celebrity, just because they have the cash to front, they don't necessarily have the knowledge to lead. As far as like the suggestions, it's just not the process, you know? It's like you shouldn't be asking for ship dates when you haven't had your first sample yet, things of that nature. So I think your example, Courtney, was perfect of like Kim clearly already has a full scenario already set up, and working for her would be different than a celebrity at a brand having their first collaboration. So that's super interesting that now we're looking at celebrities' reputation versus the brand's reputation.
And so I was on a call 2 weeks ago, maybe, or so, 10 days ago. And someone had reached out to me, kind of a long story. They need, it's a person who is looking to launch an outerwear brand. And a mutual friend who's a part of this project put me in touch with this person. And she's not from the business, you know, she's not from the business. And she said, you know, I need someone who's willing to play with me. You know, so I mean, I you know, it wasn't for me, but my point is that I think it's the same as your point. I think we're making the same point that you, because you're the trained one, you become the voice of reason in the room. You know?
Right. And I think it's only possible and has the potential to be successful with strong leadership.
Right.
So
Right.
if you can't steer the ship, it's not going anywhere.
Right. You got it. Yeah. Or there's, yeah, the longevity is probably in question, you know. But, you know, it raises another question, which is also very interesting, and that is, people get behind brands when the rocket is going, and they're like doing this, wringing the money out of the brand. And when when the rocket like runs out of fuel and drops, you know, like they got their parachute, they're out, or the rocket explodes in the air. You know, a lot of people, they don't really care about, you know, I'm building something, you know, that will have a certain longevity. They're just getting theirs while the getting is there. You know, so back to leadership, leadership has to create a model that either protects the brand and that celebrity or completely exploits the brand and the celebrity. You know, the trick is that no one really says which way it's going. You know what I mean? No one's gonna be vocal about it. But trust me, there are people who know. Within any structure, people know.
Victoria,
Oh, Victoria.
yeah.
Hi, yes, I just wanted to add that when we're going back to like celebrities having branding, I think it's so weird when a lot of celebrities are quick to announce a project and really go in depth and talk about how great something is going to be. And then when people start receiving their orders, it's not the case. And either A, they don't speak about it, or B, they're really quick to like blame the manufacturers and be quick to say that they thought they were trusting who they were working with. And I think that's also like something that goes with their ego, is instead of taking responsibility, they choose to kind of almost stand in a way that they're going to be forgiven instead of taking ownership, as we were saying, like a leader. So I think that often if let's say, I know Kylie Kardashian, she just launched a swimwear brand, and I know that got a huge amount of backlash, and never once did I see her speak about that. And I've heard like many people return their things, but again, she did absolutely nothing about it. She spoke nothing about it, and it was just almost dusted under the rug. But I think it's weird when they're charging, you know, 100 plus for a swimsuit because she is a Kardashian. But then again, like the material's see-through, it's small, it's not fitted properly, but her photo shoots make it seem that it's going to fit you along with any other body type. So I think celebrities often forget that what it really is to take the time to really make something, and it's not just a one-time deal, and that's it. You know, people are going to love it because of who you are. It just really does take time and dedication, and like we were saying, leadership. And I think that's something that they often lack because of their egos. It's just awkward when they're just hiding behind the scenes, and I'm just like, you should say something. You know, people are spending $150 on your products, and if they're not really what you're saying, it's just a weird situation. There, a lot of them, I think, are quick just to hide behind the scenes, or again, blame their teams or blame the other people that they're working with. But I mean, there's so many steps I think that they forget throughout our process that we've been learning for the last few years as students, that they just skip over. They don't go to do like checks. They don't go to the manufacturers. They don't go to these factories. Their samples may look good, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be the same when if you were to go in the factory. Like, I think it's so much more than what people think it is, and they just don't make the time for it.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a testament of how removed they are from the process. So I think, you know, as a designer, you know, they're involved in what I think they think are the fun bits. I get to come in, I get to look at color, I get to you know, say what I like and what I don't like, and then they leave. You know, like, that's it, team, like, flesh it out, right? And so, and I think, you know, that's a real case for, you know, when you look at the Kardashians, even in makeup, like within 1 year, it's like $1 billion business in 1 year. So they're like, money is raining out of the sky, right? Who cares if it fits? That's what they're thinking. You know what I mean? Who cares if the swimsuit fits or not, or if it's see-through, or the overlock threads are hanging off, whatever. And so my thing is, they're different business models. Not to say they're good business models and bad business models, but at the end of the day, the consumer votes. That's the power you have. The consumer votes. So, they sold you one suit. Are they going to sell you two? They're going to sell you the second one. So if they're not selling you a second one, they don't really have a business. Unless they keep going out, unless they can fix, if there's an ear to the ground and they can fix the problems fast enough versus the one-time buyers who are never coming back, whatever that ratio is, first-time buyers receiving, not proceeding to their second purchase versus getting the product right. And a lot of brands, like the strategy is, just bang it out. It's a different business model. Doesn't mean it's bad. And just like I said, if you find yourself in those situations, chances are no one's going to tell you what that is. Use your gut, your intuition. Like, how does this feel? Does it, like, what are people saying? Are we getting reorders? That kind of thing. And this is a phenomenon only today that, like, in 1 year, you can have over $1 billion, like it used to be in tech companies, right? So now it's like a makeup. That is the power of what's happening today.
I also wanted to add really quick that it's weird because these are celebrities. So they're people that do spend their money on higher luxurious items. So these are people, that we count on to, like, we see in Balenciaga, right? So Kim is always in Balenciaga now. How many times they've walked to the Met Gala for Versace and everything else. You just can't help but wonder, you're wearing luxurious clothes. How could you not look at your own samples and think, this is not what I want people to be paying for. I wouldn't pay for this. So again, it's just like, it just shows sometimes where, like, their head is. And then I know how you were saying with the makeup, Kylie's makeup for a long time, I think her powder products were really slacking. And now she, like, took opportunity, I think during COVID, to, like, revamp the company. But she's already been having this company for like 2.5, maybe 3 years. So it just makes you wonder, like, is that the only time that they're going to listen, is after she's already made her $1 billion profit, or what it is? Because you just can't help wonder, like, these people use all luxurious products. Like, I doubt they're walking into Walmart to buy like $5 foundation half of the time. And so I just think that's also really interesting.
So here's the bigger point. The bigger point is their business model is to get your dollar. That's it, over and out. Like, to get your dollar. So I'm going to show you, I wish I could make an example. I'm going to show you one thing, but I'm going to ship you and I'm going to sell you another thing. I'm going to show you my life and my this and my that, blah, 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 right? But I'm going to sell you something very different.
What's your opinion on that? That they just create these businesses to, like, get money and then they don't care what happens to the company if it's like a short-term type of
I'm
thing.
saying, they got theirs. They got theirs. You know, I don't think I can't put judgment on it. I can't say it's good or bad. It's a business model. You know, it's a business model. And again, who ends up voting at the end of the day is a consumer. The businesses in a negative way, the businesses that don't survive, the consumer voted. The consumer just said, I'm not buying from this anymore. You can't sell to someone who's not willing to buy. So as long as you're willing to buy the swimsuit, they're going to try to sell you a swimsuit.
So Terry Agans wrote a really good early book on this subject. I'm just trying to remember the title of it right now, but look up Terry Agans, and I'll look it up for Monday and bring that to class, because she was so early onto the subject and wrote about it so well from the early lens, and it's just continued.
Yeah, matter of fact, it's so funny. Like you just mentioned Terry. Terry's a good friend of mine, and I should have had her as a guest.
Well,
Like,
I know her too, and
Yeah.
she's been to Phoenix a few times.
really?
Yeah, she might pop in for us next Monday. Who knows?
Oh, terrific! Oh my God!
You know, I mean,
Give her a big hug.
yeah, we could ask.
Yeah, give her a big
Anyway,
hug.
it's
Yeah.
an idea,
Yeah.
since it seems to be of such interest to
Yeah.
everyone.
So, yeah. So, guys, I'm gonna hop off.
Thank you.
We can, dive deeper next week.
Very
Um,
good.
But really use this as an opportunity. What do you want to learn? It's an open book. You can get an answer to anything you want. Okay, you just have to present the question.
Thank you, Martin.
My pleasure, always.
See you next week.
Happy holidays, guys. I'll see you in a week.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, and you. Bye-bye.